Hi there, Janet Fritz here for Galaxy Girl Creations. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to Christy's Beautiful Life, 30 Days of Sketches, combined again with Color Craze. And this is actually something we planned all month between MK and I to combine our Color Craze series with 30 Days of Sketches just for fun. This is the sketch we're using from the lovely Miranda Weber, and we are using a green, black, and white color scheme. Any of the colors that you see in that inspiration piece would work, even if there's some like neutrals and such. We don't just take it from the title that's written on the actual inspiration piece. We just look at the image and decide what colors we're going to use. So if there happen to be some other like grays and browns or whatever that are neutral, you can pull those in as well. And in other Color Craze inspiration pieces, there may be additional colors in the image that are not shown in the color palette that is been pulled out. So yeah, we're pretty flexible on that. So I am starting out with a whole bunch of different green papers that I have pulled mostly from my scrap bin. There's one piece, that diagonal stripe in the background, that is definitely not from the scrap bin, but the rest of them I believe are from my scrap bin. And so lots of layers in this particular layout, and so that is what I basically took from the layout, is that there are a ton of layers going on. So I'm layering up my greens. As you saw there, that piece that I put directly behind the photographs did not go all the way around, but now it looks like it did because I just pieced it together, and that totally works in the type of layering that I do, because I'm not looking for perfect layers. I like them to be a little bit wonky, a little bit like they don't go all the way around the entire photo mat. Sometimes they're just on the top or the bottom or the sides. It's totally okay with me. I'm a huge subscriber to Chamel's theory that it should look like a stack of papers that you just haven't hit that last time against the table to make it look like it's all aligned. So that makes me so happy. Now, if I was doing photos that were a little bit more like a professional seated portrait, like maybe school photos or something that you went down to like an old school photography studio and had done, then maybe I would want them aligned more perfectly. But in this case, it works great this way. So I am taking that diagonal striped paper that is from Ellie's studio, her Penelope collection. It's super old. Don't think you can probably even find it anymore. But I gutted the background. I do know I want that striped paper all the way around the outside of my layout, but I also wanted a little bit of it tucked in to my layers so that it has some continuity and you're seeing the patterns repeatedly. And I'm really liking how that's looking. In order to break up the greens, I am adding some white and some black layers, just to give your eye a little bit of break between some of those green pieces, and I think it just makes the greens pop even more. So trimming down the black and the white so that I get multiple layers around the outside, and then I will be using the black and white on the inside layers as well. I am gutting this black paper so that I can use it on one of those other inside layers, and I keep saying the inside layers, but they're the top layers where in the sketch you can see that there are several large layers, and then I added several small layers around my photos also. So I've got layer on layer on layer on this layout, but I really like how it looks. So you know, the sketch is really just a starting out point. If you don't want to follow it exactly, you don't have to. And like I said, what I took from this is lots of layers. I'm also not doing stars. You know, if you're following the sketch exactly, maybe you are someone who has to put stars on there. I don't feel like I need to. I'm gonna put different things on there other than stars, because I want to adapt it to be something that complements my photos. Not that stars wouldn't; they definitely would, but because they're very universal. But in this case, I am going to actually be using some fairy chipboard. So I am also using some liquid glue to adhere these layers, because it allows me to be able to shift my layers over just a tiny bit if I don't get them lined up exactly. You can't do that with the ATG gun. And sometimes with the ATG, I will use the ATG gun or, you know, well, I use ATG, but other people use other kinds of glue that is the same, where it's the dry tape runner. You can't really move it without lifting it all off and starting over again. And so I have found that just using some liquid glue allows me to just kind of move it around. Now, I don't always use the liquid glue because sometimes I know I'm going to tuck things into those layers, and then the liquid glue has dried and it's impossible to tuck things in. So you really kind of have to know a little bit about where you're going with your layout if you are going to use liquid glue, because once it's dry, it's dry. Okay, so here I'm just adding in some more white layers with some scrap paper, trying to work through a bunch of scrap paper from my bin, because it's been a little overwhelming lately. I did just clean out my scrap bins and I took out the tiniest pieces. I don't really have a specific size that I stick with like some people do. If it's smaller than, I don't know, maybe 3x4 or 4x6, a lot of people will get rid of it. I kind of go by the pattern. If it's a pattern that I really love and I think I'm going to use again, I'll keep even the smallest bits of it. But if it's, you know, a pattern that I'm not super crazy about, or I have lots of other papers in that color tone that are larger, then I will go ahead and get rid of it, because most of the time I use these papers as a solid. They're not necessarily used specifically for their pattern, so I'm just going for the color. So here I've got all of these layers layered up, and now I'm going to go ahead and start modifying those fairies. So I'm going to straighten up my desk just a little bit, get things out of the way. I'm liking the way that this is looking, so I'm going to go ahead and glue that down. I'm not using liquid glue here because you know, if it's off by a smidge, it's not going to matter so much. But when you are doing those outside layers where you have a very small reveal, it does matter. So now I'm taking my fairies and I am using some gesso. This is Art Basics heavyweight gesso in white, and I am gessoing them up. These are chipboard fairies from Creative Embellishments. They've been in my stash for ages. I want to say 2018, which I believe is when MK and I met at a retreat, and she had a pack of fairies in her one of her table gifts, chipboard fairies, and I had a pack of spark plugs. And as you could imagine, she probably didn't want the fairies. She'd rather have the spark plugs. And I was like, I don't need a whole pack of spark plugs. So I grabbed one of the spark plugs out of the packs, and I don't know if she even took a fairy out of the pack, but we traded. So they're finally getting used. The pack came with, I think, 7 fairies in it, 7 or 8 fairies. So I just pulled out these 3 that I thought worked well with my layout. I am gessoing them up so that when I spray them with white Dina Wakley Media Gloss, it doesn't just soak right in. And the Media Gloss doesn't soak in so much compared to maybe like the Dilutions or even some of the Distress sprays, because it is an acrylic spray. It does tend to sit on top, but I really wanted to make sure it stayed on top, so I was like, I'm just going to go through the extra effort to add this heavy gesso. And it was the first time I've used the gesso anyway, so it gave me a chance to kind of play around with it and see what the consistency was before I use it like on a layout somewhere else. So I am just spraying them with that white Dina Wakley Media Gloss, and I am drying them as they go so that they get some good coverage. And they dried so well, they stuck a little bit to that paper towel. And then I am going to go and modify their wings a bit using some paper glitz in sparkle. So it's a little bit like paper glaze, but it's thinner and it has a silver sparkle to it. So I'm just going to take that, I'm going to brush it onto their wings so their wings have a little bit of sparkle to them and don't look exactly the same as the body of the fairy. It's kind of hard to tell, but in the close-up I think you can tell. And then I'm also sparkling up the little butterfly that is in each of the fairies' hands, just to give a little bit of added interest. And I'm just using a regular paintbrush to apply those, and trying not to get it in between all of those little cutouts in the fairy's wings, because I want to make sure that those stay open. So it's something that you kind of have to watch out for when you're painting or putting any kind of mixed media on these fairies that's other than a spray. The spray doesn't seem to affect them too much, but anything that is a little thicker can kind of clog up the pores. They're not really pores, but you know, the little spots in the wings, and I didn't want to do that, so I was being a little cautious of that. I did pull out my Sizzix iridescent, let's see here, luster wax. It's not iridescent wax. Well, it is iridescent in color, but it is luster wax, and it is called Lilac Rainbow. And I'm just rubbing it over the body of the fairy. You can kind of see there, it pinked it up just a tiny bit, but when the light hits it, it's still white, but it's got like a pink sheen. You can kind of see the difference, and I hope that that is apparent in the video there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that to all of the fairies. Worst case scenario, I did try it on the first one there just to see how it looked. Worst case, I did have more fairies in the pack of embellishments, so I could definitely redo one of those if I didn't like how it looked. But I did know it was kind of a transparent looking medium, and so I'm pretty happy with the way that it turned out. Now, I did try those big white florals on the layout here, but I'm not actually going to use those. I'm going to change it up and use 3 of these little tiny flowers from Paper Studio, and that's the Hobby Lobby brand, and I haven't bought little flowers in quite some time, but when I do buy them, I just wait for them to hit the 40% off like every other week, and I will buy them for this purpose. And I actually really like the white ones because I can modify them with my inks or my sprays to be whatever color I like. So a little tip for you, buying in white is a really good idea because you can modify them. I have these stickers that I got quite some time ago, I think even at that same retreat, and so I thought they were perfect because they're black and white, and my title is just going to be Fairy Fun. In case you're wondering, that is the photos are of the older sister of the girl I watch, and I actually used to watch her before she went to school. And one of the days that she was out of school, the 3 of us built a fairy garden in their yard. So that is her with the half that she built, and then at some point I will do the half that her little sister did with photos of her little sister, because I'm doing a little album for each of them, and so I thought that would be a lot of fun to document their little fairy gardens and the things that they chose and picked out. I did pick some stickers there to add to that blank green space above the landscape photo so that I can do a little bit of journaling there. And I'm really liking the way that this is looking, you guys. I love all the layers, and I love all the different shades of green and the textures that the fairies bring with their different finishes on them, and the little florals. So while I finish that up, don't forget there are a bunch of people playing along with 30 Days of Sketches. The playlist is down below where you can see all of the sketches that have been used to date, or all of the videos that have been released to date, I should say. And there is a link to MK's channel, so you can go and see what she has done for today's Color Craze video. Go and check it out and leave her some love. And if you want links to any of the products that I have used, I will put those down below for you if they are still available. And as the message said at the very beginning of the video with the little ticker, I do get a little bit of a kickback if you use my links, so I do appreciate that. You are not required to. It doesn't cost you any extra, but if you want to add a little support or throw a little support my way, that does always help me out. So thank you for that if you choose to use my links. Again, it's not required, but I do need to tell you that the links do give me a bit of a kickback. I'm required by law to tell you that. So anyway, I am just adding a little bit of foam below this little fairy those paper layers, because there are so many paper layers behind it, there was a little bit of a gap, so I'm just giving her a little extra support. And now I am sprinkling a little bit of dilutions across each of the areas, and I am using the sparkle spray so that, or the shimmer spray, so that it gives a little bit of added shine. That is it, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have questions or comments, please go ahead and leave those down below. I will respond as quickly as I can. I thank you for spending time with me today, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. I will be back again in 2 days with another video for you, and I will see you then. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Take care. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.